Hello, hello, matriculants. Today we'll be discussing the poem The Zulu Girl by Roy Campbell. He's a South African poet. I hope you enjoy it and let's get into it. The Zulu Girl. When in the sun the hot red acres smolder, down where the sweating gang its labour plies, a girl flings down a hoe, and from a shoulder unslings a child tormented by flies. She takes him to a ring of shadow pulled by the thorn tree purpled with the blood of ticks, while the sharp nails in slow caresses roll, prowl through his hair with sharp electric clicks. His sleeping mouth, plucked by the heavy nipple, tugs like a puppy, grunting as he feels. Through his fell nerves her own deep languors ripple, like a broad river sighing through the reeds. Yet in that drowsy stream his flesh imbibes an old, unquenched, unsmotherable heat, the curbed ferocity of beaten tribes, the sullen dignity of their defeat. Her body looms above him like a hill. Within those shade a village lies at rest. Or the first cloud, so terrible and still, that bears the coming harvest in its breast. So getting into the analysis of the Zulu Girl, the word Zulu in the title, it gives you the impression that we are about to find out about indigenous people of South Africa, native people of South Africa, a specific clan of people within South Africa. The word girl gives specification to the maturity. So the age level is reflected in the word girl, as they are not saying woman. So it's not a mature woman, it is actually emphasizing youth. So in stanza 1, line 1, it says, when in the sun the hot red acres smolder. The word acres, obviously, it means measure of land. So, for example, you'd say, I have 50, 60 acres of land. It's showing the extent of where your land begins and ends. So the words acres and smolder. So acres and smolder, the S's shows us the figure of speech is alliteration here. It's making a sizzling sound, and that emphasizes how hot and unbearably hot the environment was. Line 2, down where the sweating gang its labor plies. This shows us the terrible conditions under which these people worked. They seem to be forced to work, treated like prisoners. And the word gang over here, it has negative connotations. If we think of the word gang, we think about violence, we think about a group of no-gooders, and that is the emphasis that's being put on the terrible conditions under which these people has to work. In line 3, a girl flings down her hoe and from her shoulder. So the word hoe, I've given a picture as to illustrate what a hoe is. It's a form of apparatus that the farm workers would use on the farms in order to rake or to till or work the land. So over here we've got a picture of a hoe. So the speaker then focuses on a girl who flings down a hoe to unsling her child. And here is now reference made to the fact that she has a baby. So not only is she working under horrific conditions, and the fact that she's a young girl, we're thinking about child labor, it also gets a bit worse. She is doing all this with a child on her back. So line 4, unslings a child tormented by flies. So reference made that this girl is now a mom, and the child, the word tormented, another link to the type of environment they find themselves in. But the mother has no choice but to bring him to the field to work, else would look after her baby. So this can be seen as an act of defiance when you are flinging something down. And normally find this with teenagers. You tell them to do something, and if they're not in the mood or they were busy doing something else, they will shut the door, or they will take the object in defiance or throw it down in defiance, just showing their frustration, just exercising their frustration. So remembering that this is a young girl, obviously of childbearing age, so she would be an adolescent, a teenager. And it would go to show she has adolescent phases that she's going through. So she has to work on this land. She's not free to do what she wants to. And all this she's doing with carrying a child on her back. So moving on to stanza 2, over here, we look at line 5. She takes him to a ring of shadow pooled. Shadow pooled. Pooled is a contrasting image of the heat. So when you think of heat, you do not think of pool. So it's a contrasting image that the poet is trying to convey. And this stanza also is describing the environment. The area is so hot, yet there is no shade for the workers, and that there are ticks around, but nobody seems interested in protecting the workers from them. So in line 6, by the thorn tree. So there's a colon that follows, and the colon signifies that there is more information coming. So by the thorn tree, and now it describes the situation or the scene at the thorn tree. It's purpled with blood of ticks. So usually when blood dries up, it turns purple. So it is explaining that it has been there for some time. And it also explains the harsh image, not usually associated with coolness and shade. Also, the thorn tree is indigenous to South Africa, so I've got an image here to show you, giving you that visual representation. Line 7, while her sharp nails in slow caresses ruled, prowl through his hair, sharp electric clicks. So the word or the phrases sharp nails, slow caresses, prowl, searching for ticks shows comparison to an animal hunting, prowling. Sharp electric clicks all convey to us an idea of contrast, of a strong yet protective mother. Moving on to stanza 3, line 9. His sleepy mouth plugged by the heavy nipple. Line 10, tugs like a puppy, grunting as he feels. So line 9 and 10, there is a figure of speech there, and that's a simile. The child is compared to a puppy because of how he is feeding. This emphasizes the baby's innocence and helplessness when it gets to the next line and describes frail nerves. But also the word grunting is a form of onomatopoeia, and that copies the satisfying sound. In line 11, that we just made a reference to, through his frail nerves, her own deep languorous ripple. So frail nerves meaning the baby is anxious and needing food. Look, it's a small baby, and obviously the baby has needs, and the needs need to be taken care of ASAP. The word languor, that means tired, tiredness. So it's the mother's deep tiredness and low energy. Languor flows through her into a child. So not only is the baby getting the milk from her body, it's also getting her tiredness while suckling on her nipple. Like a broad river sighing through the reeds. So here we have personification. The river describes as tired or satisfied while sighing. Also, line 12, the child feeds off the mother's breast, but there is more milk than the baby is taking, like previously explained. It is also the mother's tiredness. Line 11 and 12 is also a form of simile. So it's the comparison, the milk flowing through the mother and child transmits her languor, her tiredness. This is compared to a river that flows slowly, sighing through the reed. So comparisons are made about the flow of something. On the one hand, we've got the flow of the mother's milk, and on the other hand, we've got the flow of the water going through the river. So moving along to stanza 4, line 13. Yet in that drowsy stream his flesh imbibes. The word yet, it conveys the idea that not only is the baby taking in the mother's languor, her tiredness, or her milk, that the child is also taking in something else. Drowsy stream, the milk makes him sleepy and relaxed, which is quite often the case when it comes to newborns or infants and their mothers, suckling from the mother. The words in flesh, his flesh imbibes. The child also imbibes. Another word for imbibe is absorb. The child also absorbs something else. In line 14, it tells us what that something else is. An old, unquenched, unsmotherable heat. So these phrases, an old, unquenched, unsmotherable heat, this is another feeling or form of energy that the child takes from his mother. A strength, much like heat, that is unable to be extinguished by anything. So it's conveying that she's quite tough for her young age. Line 15, the curbed ferocity of beaten tribes. Curbed ferocity, it means to restrain forcefully. Whilst they are undefeated, the workers are still violent, but they are keeping it in check. Sullen dignity, the sullen dignity of their defeat. So sullen dignity, despite their current oppressed state, these tribes are still ferocious and they keep their dignity even though they are defeated. Sullen dignity. But then you ask yourself the question, are they really defeated? How much can an oppressor really take from you? And then just the word beaten tribes, it also refers to the African tribes that were beaten into submission by their colonizers. Because when you think about the clansmen of Shaka Zulu and the freedom they had, the power they had, and the control over their lands they had, and then these colonizers came and they would beat them into submission. They would put them through horrific conditions in order to do the work that they needed them to do and to obviously be their slaves. So quite a graphic image that's being portrayed by the poet. Stanza 5, line 17. Her body looms above him like a hill. The mother stands above her child, but she seems more imposing and stronger than she was at the beginning of the poem. And the words like a hill, the words like is being used, so the comparison has to be a simile. The mother standing over her child is compared to a huge hill that protects what it is covering. Lines 18. What it is covering is being made known. Within those shade, a village lies at rest. So she stands guard over her child against anyone who would dare hurt him. Line 19. Or the first clouds, so terrible and still. These lines refer to storm clouds, which look harmless, but bring intense weather that eventually benefits the land. Line 20. That bears the coming harvest in its breast. Over here, another comparison is being made. Please note that this is a metaphor. It compares the mother to a cloud. Just as you cannot predict when a storm will arrive, it is the same when this woman and her tribe. They are gathering strength and one day will unleash a huge storm on the people and will bring a harvest of all, just as the rains help bring a harvest of crops. So in summary, to wrap up, the poem The Zulu Girl is a powerful recreation of the hardship and endurance of the South African people. Roy Campbell makes the masculinist equation, example, male is equal to culture and female is equal to nature. It poses an immediate problem of how miserable the poor South African people are forced to work on the farms. The poem is powerful both in sound and effect. The poem has a 4-line stanza. The speaker provides a detail of the plight of the Zulu girl, and the observation made by the speaker is minute and influential.